Okay, so on to the program. As you all know, if you saw this before, the back road, Philadelphia, Camden to Pemberton and points east via the Pennsylvania Railroad. The inspiration of this program came from the collection of Mr. Jim Leslie, a lifelong Moorestown resident who had a very large collection of black and white 8x10 and some color pictures that he gave to me in 2014 before his passing. Jim told me that I couldn't remove any photos, but I could add, which I have. And Jim also told me that I was not the owner of the photos. I was just a custodian. And at some point I will pass them on. Brief timeline of the Pemberton branch. John Burlage put this together. 1849, Burlington and Mount Holly Railroad and Transportation Company service began June 18th. 1863, the company is authorized to extend its railroad from Mount Holly to Pemberton. Trains began operating between Burlington and Pemberton on January 1st. 1868, the Pemberton Hightstown Railroad Company began service February 6th. 1888, the Union Transportation Company begins operations between Pemberton and Hightstown. On 1917, Camp Dix opens, a big part of the train service in the line. 1952, ferry service is discontinued between Philadelphia and Camden on March 31st. 1969, the last passenger trains from Camden to Pemberton ran on April 25th. In 1977, the Union Transportation Company ran its last freight train on March 31st, and in 1981, that company was dissolved. 1981, Conrail issued an embargo on the line between Mount Holly and Fort Dix. Segment was officially abandoned on March 30th, 1982. Track removal was completed by June 1st of 1984. So the back road, I took this from West Jersey Rails 3 from Frank Gazemple. Line was called by this name because it was an alternate route between Philadelphia and Long Branch. A more direct all-rail route existed via Trenton, Monmouth Junction, Jamesburg, and Seagard. So here's a map from 1911 showing the line from Camden along out to Moorestown. I'll just go briefly here. Masonville, Hainesport, Mount Holly, Big Junction, Birmingham, another junction. Pemberton Hightstown went this way. And tonight we're going to stop around Hanover Farms, which is now known as that, and Upton. And part two of the program, hopefully next year, we'll begin with the Buckingham Whitings area out to Seaside Park and up to Bay Head. Next slide we'll see is an employee timetable. This was for people, non-railroader people, but from the Atlantic Division timetable number 20, in effect Sunday, September 27, 1931. Crews on the trains were required to carry their timetable books with them, as you know. There were a lot of more pages, but this time and it shows that a lot of trains ran on this line daily. And here's I'll let you look at this slide for a while, starting in Camden, coming out the branch that went off to South Pemberton, and tonight we're going to stop at Upton. Okay, here's an employee timetable from October 27th, 1963. And this just got added in today. This was John Burlage. If you'd like to talk about this.
What it is, it's a schedule of one-way fares for the Trenton division of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And on the right, what you see where it says main line, that is essentially the back road from Camden to Bayhead Junction. And the back road had several branches, all of which are listed here. One to Burlington, one to Medford, one to Vincenttown, another to Kincora, Browns Mills, and Island Heights. This was issued in 1920, and this is before a number of these branches were abandoned.
Similar timetable from 1943, public timetable. The back side of the same timetable, you can see how many trains ran a day at that point. (1962) fares and the timetable. You see that we're down to 2 trains a day. And John Stone or Don, if you want to talk about those 2 trains, you'll see on the next couple timetables that we'll show you.
Right there at the end, there was one crew worked the branch. And what they did was they went to work in Camden early in the morning and ran without passengers out to the Y, the Medford branch Y at Mount Holly, turned the train on the Y and shoved to Pemberton, brought the first train into Camden. When they were finished with that, they backed to Moorestown for the second train and then brought that in and reversed the process at night.
Yeah, I believe 1962 was the first year that they did that.
You may be right. I think you're right there, John.
Yeah, I think prior to that they had 2 sets of equipment based out of Pemberton.
Yeah, they laid over at Pemberton prior to what I mentioned.
Right. And yeah, this was what it got down to.
And fares on the second column to the right. I was remiss when I started the program. There was five of us here talking tonight, and myself going and trying to go in order of alphabetical orders of John Burlage, Ben Makem, well, Don Lee, Ben Makem, and John Stone. So John Stone is a original Moorestown resident. So I want to thank you all for joining in. This is another timetable, similar format from 1963. These are all from the Jim Leslie collection. They're now in the locker. Now this next one is interesting. April 26, 1964. You'll note that the only day off that they were not running was September 7th, as that was Labor Day. So why not Memorial Day? So we had to dig this up because we were all surprised Memorial Day became a federal holiday in the United States in 1971. And in 1968, the Uniform Monday Holiday Act was passed, which moved Memorial Day from May 30th to the last Monday in May. The act also required federal employees to have a day off. So I never remembered that personally, but we did a little Googling while we were in the middle of putting this program together. 4th of July in 1964 was also on a Saturday. So consequently, the only week that the train didn't run was, or day the train didn't run was Monday, September 7th. It was Labor Day. This is the calendar and Mondays through Fridays except September 7th. Then one of your last, close to last calendar or schedules from the Penn Central. And you can also see that the you left from 12th Street in Camden and took the bus from 12th Street to Broadway. And that was due to Patco construction. And if Don, you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, when Patco construction started, of course, Broadway was discontinued for the construction, so a temporary station, I guess you would call it that, was built at 12th Street, just about where Admiral Wilson Boulevard goes under the railroad today. And passengers were bused from Broadway at the location, well, where the Patco is today, where the Patco station is underground today, from that location to 12th Street. And both the Millville trains that were the only trains left and the Pemberton trains had that bus connection. And that did wonders to send passengers away from the trains.
So this also came to light this morning in the locker in an envelope. A 20 some odd ride ticket with the different punches from different conductors. This Don, you want to keep going about this one?
All right. Well, each ticket collector, they weren't all conductors, but each ticket collector was issued a punch, and the symbol on the punch was different. And by the company could identify who had punched the ticket by the shape of the punch that was used. And this particular ticket, being a 3-month ticket, was the length of time that you could use this ticket, but it was a 24 trip ticket. And you'll notice there's only 23 numbers around the edge. On the 24th trip, the ticket collector would actually collect this, and that would be the symbol for the 24th trip. So this ticket was purchased July 21st, and 3 months later was October 21st, and that's the expiration date stamped on the front there.
So a short list of some of the things that traveled on the back road was coal, dairy and food items from farmers, laborers, lumber and construction materials, mail and express packages, manufactured goods, military material, and troops, passengers, and sand, just some of the items that were carried by the railroad. So let's start in Philadelphia at the Market Street Wharf. Start where Jim always started his talks with, and how he's had his pictures in the boxes. Crossing the river on the ferries. These are Bob Long photos, incidentally. There's what put the ferries out of business in the background. Gentleman down shoveling coal. Boilers. The ferry.
Yeah, Bob got permission not long before the end to take some extensive photographs of the ferry operation.
from top to bottom, literally.
Hey, yes.
This is just a small smattering of the ferry photos. Guess you had a few minutes to sit down during the trip. It's coming into Camden. You have Campbell Soup over here on the left, RCA, and it's Camden City Hall right over the S of Pennsylvania. This image we found this morning. I don't know if it was from the end, but we found it in one of with a lot of Bob Long material.
Yeah, I would guess the ferry was 5 cents cheaper.
And I remember the Tony Palmyra was a nickel.
Yep.
Yep.
So here we go. We start at the ferry terminal. Down the shops where the aquarium and everything else is now. This is all gone, obviously.
For reference, the front side of that brick building there beyond the water tank faces on 2nd Street.
Jerry McDonald photo, 1964. The old Broadway station photos. From the street. $19.55.
You can see that's the newer Broadway terminal in the background there. And this car could be going to Pemberton or could be going to Trenton up to Camden and Amboy.
There's the 12th Street station. And the last run in, you'll see photos from the last run sprinkled through this, but that's on the left is Art Anderson of Cherry Hill, and on the right is W.H. Claypool of Mount Holly. Photos noted by Brad Phillips. It's Cooper River, bridge over Cooper River. Looking west. And one looking back into Camden, looking south.
That's a smash board for the drawbridge hanging down there.
The track on the extreme left is the beginning of the Pemberton branch.
Coming out to West Merchantville. We're looking here towards Camden, Browning Road.
Mhm.
It's February 1967. And in March, Norman Lippincott was there, took a photo in the other direction. That's looking in towards Merchantville. The Merchantville station from 1936. From the our collection, from the Francis Palmer collection.
That's the passing siding that ran from around Browning Road in the foreground.
And you can also see what you'll see in some of the other subsequent shots, photos of freight cars back in the yard. Looking the other direction. Center Street. Just looking in the other direction, you can see the freight house. More freight cars sitting in the yard. One of Will Coxey's photos from 1969 with the semaphore.
In the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s, furniture company was using the siding there it was cheaper for them to pay per diem on the boxcars full of furniture than to rent warehouse space. So they kept carloads of furniture in that siding quite frequently. This would be the early 1970s.
So next we get the subject of Pennsauken spelled with 2 N's or Pennsauken spelled with 3 N's. From Paul Schaub, said the proper spelling was Pennsauken with 2 N's until the legislature created the township as a new municipality in 1892. At that time, someone not in the know had the idea that the word meant Penn's Hawking Grounds. So the lawmakers received instructions to spell the name with 3 N's and not just 2. And this is from the Pennsauken station in 1932, but you'll see some pictures coming up where there's only 2 N's. This is Frank Kazempel photo with an eastbound freight. And what's unique about this locomotive is it's red. It was one of the few red engines at that time. But you can see Pennsauken, how it's spelled with 2 N's instead of 3.
Yeah, that's a VO 1000, that bald one. That was among the first groups of engines, diesels that Pennsy bought. They had, I think they bought a 600 horsepower unit from EMD, and then 2 small lots of 660 and 1,000 horsepower from Baldwin.
1961.
E units also.
You can see where the trains come down now. Through Merchantville. From Jordan off the Delaware Bridge, or from Pavonia Yard.
Yeah, it's interesting in looking at employee timetables. Up through the teens and 20s, the employee timetables I've seen don't show any through passenger trains from 30th Street using that connection. But I have a 1932 timetable that shows 2 each way every day, coming off the connection at Jordan there.
Yeah, John, that was for a very short time, the Broad Street station to Seaside. That was
Yeah.
very, I think it was only like you said, 32 and 33, but that was about it.
The primary reason for that Pennsauken to Jordan connection was for handling troop trains from Dix.
Still had its little ornate wood trim pieces. This is one of Will Coxey's photos.
Shoving back to Moorestown, looks like.
Coming to Maple Shade. And as you look at the next couple pictures of Maple Shade Station, it was enlarged. So this, and when we were in there about 10 years ago, you could see where the other half of the station was added on. A little longer here. This was one of Jim Leslie's photos. Down the other side of the street is a Wawa. So pulling in and out for dropping lumber. It used to be a lumber yard to the right behind the train.
Yeah, they had to cross the street there to get into the lumber yard. And the arrangement getting in and out of there, at least during the 1970s, was like a switchback where they had left a stub of the old passing siding in to access that siding.
You can see what's left out on the main.
Yes.
Also, where this chimney is, this was where the building was added on to, where the station was added on.
Wonder if they eliminated a separate freight station when they did that.
Don't know. And coming out to Moorestown, the first stop in Moorestown from Camden was Linola. And we were looking at this picture a couple times. You see the window and you see a window in the front. Then we have a picture from the Francis Palmer collection from 1947 where the window's boarded up and it's just an open shelter. And John, I might let you take it from here through Moorestown, and then you could just tell me when to go to the next shot.
Okay. This is the West Moorestown passenger station at Church Street. We're looking east in this photo. In the background, you can see the freight station, which in my time was either leased or owned by a pipe company that kept all kinds of pipe piled around it. And I think the depot itself was also owned by the piping company. They had added a cinder block structure to it.
Next is Mill Street. This is just a couple months ago. And I'm stealing John's thunder here, but that was the what I now know is the hardware store behind it, Collins Lumber. Collins Lumber used to get freight deliveries there. This was the train was headed east.
Yeah, they had a split siding in Collins. One ran parallel to the main track into a big coal shed. They could spot hoppers. And the other one curved back around through the whole Collins Lumberyard complex. And I understand there was another customer behind there that received coal at one time, but I don't recall it being there during my time.
Well, there's still as of a couple of years ago, there's still a bumper back there with a tree stump growing through it.
Oh.
So this was one of Jim Leslie's. This is Chester Avenue. This was one of Jim's favorite picture, 10 minutes late. And postal clerk George Britton at Chester Avenue. Crossing guard is down here in the street with the shanty. And they were waiting for a train to pick up, do either mail pickup. All this is gone now, but and the station has moved closer to us in the picture. But Jim had a very big enlargement of this photo in his living room. Chester Avenue. Well, I'll let you. I'll go back to John, 1955.
Oh, That's Chester Avenue, 1955.
Yeah.
Last day of passenger service,
Well, that would,
steam
well,
passenger service, last steam passenger run on the entire Pennsylvania system. And inbound to Camden. I understand 5351 was actually run again out of Camden Terminal Engine House up somewhere to North Jersey for a temporary boiler assignment for some factory. So that wasn't the end of it for 5351.
now these pictures were out of Jim's office window, which was right across the street from the Chester Avenue station.
Neat photo. That 8975 was an BRS 12 SX by Penn Central. It was renumbered 8084 and was actually the engine used on the final few weeks of passenger service out the Pemberton branch. Later was renumbered 8306 and primarily used as a coach switcher at 30th Street, and I think retired probably 1975.
And that's looking out across the street at Chester Avenue Station with freight, pretty long freight too.
Mm.
And the thing that intrigued me there was the ashtrays in the windowsill.
And notice the poles probably going to the creosote place up there outside of Mount Holly.
Mm-hmm. 8084 was renumbered to make room for the large amount of GP 38-2s that Penn Central ordered around 1973.
Yeah, I think that all the remaining Baldwins ended up in the 8300 series about then.
Now there's I'll let John talk here in a minute, but I want to point one thing out to you before I'll go back to John. This building down here on your left, it's Hollingshead. And one customer from the railroad, which is the building's no longer there. But I'll talk about it, but I just wanted to point that out to you now. And then John, you can go back to your.
Oh no, that's pretty good. It's interesting to me. This is a year before the passenger trains came off, and they're still running 2 coaches. At the very end, it was down to just 1. And there's just 1.
One of Brad's slides.
Yeah. That might be me standing in the middle of the track there. That's about the right size for me. That's the final day of passenger service.
This is that building is now a dentist office, and it's moved further back.
Yeah.
Now the building I was telling you about, Hollingshead, and then it dawned on me when I was doing this program, I had this thermometer in our house. So just a little bit about Hollingshead and their phone number and fuel oil, burner service, coal feed, dog food, bird seed, fertilizer. So just a little bit about what they did and at that point, how long they were here. And I'm proud to tell you that that thermometer, as of about maybe a month ago now is resides in the Moorestown Historical Society from our house.
Very nice.
John, these are John's pictures, so I'll let John.
This is spring of 1977 after Conrail had come in to play. CB20 switching the Hollingshead spur. They picked up an empty box car out of there and were holding to 2 other box cars that they pulled somewhere west of there. On the main line, you see a auto rack full of brand new Dodge pickup trucks for Fort Dix. And I believe this was a Friday, because the crew was in kind of a hurry. By this time, since Conrail had gone in effect, they're all working, getting a merger guarantee, so they were no longer really trying to stay out there all day. They were going to make all their money anyway so they were moving along as best they could on the 10-mile-an-hour railroad. And this is earlier. This is probably fall of 1969, I believe. I took this. You looking looking west into the coal shed at Hollingshead. Pretty steep grade. During my time, I only remember box cars there, but a friend of mine, Bill Stussy, says, "Oh no, they got coal. I think they got about 1 car of coal a year, but they probably got about 50 cars of animal feed, and almost entirely in 40-foot box cars throughout the course of the year."
Now it's just a residential neighborhood.
Oh well. This is neat. That siding was gone by the time I started poking around, which would have been 1969. The signal mast was there. But yeah, I guess he's coming out onto the main line there. This is taken from Zelly Avenue looking west, CB 21. And this is Zelly Avenue looking east, CB 21, 1974. By that time, GP 30s had filtered in, and the Baldwins were getting extremely scarce. It was mostly GP 30s, GP 9s, RS 11s, and then a flock of SW 1s started showing up every once in a while. So yeah, things were kind of changing. Neat.
From back to Jim's photos from 1890, I can tell you, I'll show you a picture in a moment, but the only thing left of this area, I live I'm right now where I'm sitting is about a block and a half from where the station was. And now all there is a concrete pad. Don Lee, I'll let you talk about this is a troop train from Fort Dix. That's Jim Leslie. Oh, this is a Norman Lippincott photo, but Don, I'll let you take it from there. That's Stanwick Avenue.
All right. Yeah, this was a Sunday in 1962. I forget the exact date. My father was at that time a PRSL conductor, but he had rights on the Pennsylvania, and they needed a yardmaster at Fort Dix for this day, and they asked him to go up and do it, and he did. And that was for 3 troop trains that were operated out of Fort Dix that day in conjunction with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And as best I can determine, these were the last 3 troop movements ever to depart from Fort Dix or arrive.
And behind here is what was Pearl of Brick and Block. And they also sold coal. So this is one of my photos from 2010, which except for the locomotives, blue is gone, but that doesn't look much different. Have a nursing home in the background, and there's the concrete pad that was the Stanwick Avenue station. And this is now they're crossing what's called North Stanwick Road. And they're heading west. John?
Okay, that's Dead Man's Curve. That's east of the RCA plant, which is something different, I guess, now. But this is where Marne Highway zigzagged under the railroad. And there's no sign of this at all, as far as I know anymore. It's a level crossing. I guess
I,
it crossed
for
to
your,
Costco or something.
yeah, Topgolf, it's now there,
Huh.
and Costco.
Yeah. I guess they built this when the trolley line was run out Marne Highway to Mount Holly, I suppose. You notice that the abutment is built for a second track, but they never ran a second track through there.
This is December of 2008. Conrail used to have, I guess, a party at the Lenola Fire Department. And on Friday, they would bring an extra locomotive for Santa to ride back in on.
Hmm.
And they would leave it parked under the turnpike in 295. And up here, you can still see the guards to keep the heat and the steam, protect the turnpike from the heat and the steam of the steam locomotives, the ash, whatnot. And they're still there. Those panels.
Hmm.
All right, John.
All right, this is from one of the highest mountains in South Jersey, which is the New Jersey Turnpike embankment. I crawled up there and took this shot, and making sure I got the pole in the way there. So this is CB21. That same day, I took several photos. I followed them down the road. But anyway, you can see things have changed a little bit. There was no protected crossing there then, just a farm crossing, and guess that's about it.
Old Hartford Station.
Mhm.
And you have the Hartford shelter, and we're looking west. It's the turnpike in the background. Now there's Briggs Road cuts through here. There's a crossing over here. Now we're at Hartford Road with a accident. I think, John, you knew something about this accident.
Yeah, it was one of the inbound commuter trains hit that truck, and I believe it was Ripper Holt, who was a regular on CB20 when I was a kid, told me that he hit that he was working the commuter job and hit that truck there, and stayed on the rail, but he stood up. He said he stood up against the back head of the diesel and away from the windows in case it stripped the side of the cab off. It did a pretty good job. Because it looks like all they have for protection there is a bell and probably crossbucks.
Yeah, there's gates there, but there's a lot of trees, and never knew all that was back there. And the gas station is also going across the street,
Oh yeah.
and as well as the little country stores going also.
Oh.
This is one of Brad's photos from April 1969, west of Masonville, heading east.
That's neat.
That picture just has class.
Masonville. And these billboards are the only billboards on that road that I know of. And they're still there, and they're still maintained. Another one of John's photos. John, if you want to, same day, I guess.
Yeah, same day, and it was just kind of blurry. Here they are coming to the Hainesport Industrial Park. You notice the previous photo, there was a Santa Fe insulated boxcar next to the engine. That was pulled from that was an empty pull from Gallo Wine at Hainesport Industrial Park.
Now, this is February 26, 2022. Vince Jacobowski called me and told me that they were railroad construction company was replacing all the ballast, all the ties, all the track in the industrial park that weekend. So ran out on a Saturday night around 6:30, and it was dark driving out Marne Highway, and got out towards Hainesport, all the floodlights. This is just one cell phone photo. It was like daylight out there, and posted some on Facebook, got in a conversation with some people that worked on this job, and it was all done over the weekend, and we're back in operation on Monday morning. The Hainesport station. And shelter. This is a shot when they were rebuilding the bridge over the Rancocas Creek by Rancocas Woods. And we showed this a couple weeks. Vince told me he took this on May 1st, 2015. And John, this is one of your a little further out.
Yeah, this is the actual Rancocas Creek, where the railroad swings away from Marne Highway. This is CB 20 headed towards Mount Holly. Same day as the pictures back there at
And you can see the
Hollington.
rack.
You can see the auto racks there. And you can see this bridge abutments were built for double track, but they never got around to double tracking there. This would be spring of 1977.
All right, so Ben, this is one that slide we put in yesterday from 1913. So Ben, I'm going to let you talk about this one.
Yeah, the reason why when a train would be coming down from Burlington, it had to go past the tower, the bottom here, back into back into the passenger station. He'd have to back up to drop his cars off, pull the engine off, turn the engine around, back out, pick up the cars, push them down past the tower, and then head north back to Burlington. And I find that movement would be pretty complicated because every train on the back road stopped at Mount Holly. So all your local trains and long distance, all the locals and the long distance going to Long Branch, Vincenttown, Browns Mills, everything. And the trains that came in from Broad Street Station, the first stop would be Mount Holly. And I just found that, that would be a lot of complication to turn that train around with all that traffic funneling through that single track going through the passenger station. And this is neat because this also shows where the roundhouse was and the turntable. Would that be pretty close to Marne Highway?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But it
mentioned
was-
earlier about the latter days of the Pemberton local. They turned on the Y at Medford Branch Y and shoved to Pemberton, and that's the Y there on the left-hand side of this diagram.
Yes.
Back to 1956, and I imagine this is by Madison Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
That's Norm Seidelman and his sister. at Mount Holly. He asked me to make some copies of that picture for him, he and his sister. And I did. And I said, I'd like to hold on to one. And he said, sure. And you'll see in a moment a canopy, and you can just barely see the canopies over here on the left. You'll see that's pictured from under the canopy of the station.
And Don, I have a question for you. So in the morning, the engine would push the cars down to that Y and then turn it around and continue engine first into Camden?
Well, they would run engine first from Camden to the Y, turn the entire train on the Y and shove to Pemberton, and then run engine forward all the way into Camden with the passengers, shove back to Moorestown without passengers for the second train, and then run engine first into Camden with passengers on the second train. And at night, it would be reversed. When they got to Pemberton, they would shove back to the Y, turn it, and run engine first into Camden
Okay,
to
because
complete their trip for the day.
Okay.
And you can see the crane over here. The crane still there.
Hmm.
It's about the only thing that's there. They've cleaned all that lot out on the other side of Madison Avenue. There's another picture from your last day of service from April 25th, 1969.
Yep.
Okay,
This is early Conrail. That's a former Reading engine. And on the right is Robert R. Holt, went by Ripper. He was a regular engineer on that job when I was a kid, and host of many cab rides. On the left is a retired mailman from Mount Holly. He was a lifelong rail fan, and he would stroll down. They called him the Mount Holly Yardmaster. He'd come down there and poke around and ride with them a little bit. And if you look closely in the bottom right corner, that was my old dog Dobie, who climbed up there to look around. So this is right in front of the station at Mount Holly. Now this is that train that we saw earlier with the Dodge trucks for Fort Dix. You'll notice this is eastbound, but they've turned the whole train. Yeah, that's true. They've turned the whole train at the Y there, the Medford branch Y, which was still in service in Mount Holly during the early part of Conrail. And they're switching across Madison Avenue. They shoved off the auto rack and the refrigerator car in the yard. This was a Friday. They wanted an early quit. I guess there was no real reason to get the cars to Fort Dix that day. Nothing would happen to them over the weekend anyhow. So they're shuffling the deck there, getting ready to head back west to Pavonia.
now this is the last train I saw across Madison Avenue to switch back around and head back to Camden. This was in December 2009. And in January, when I came back out here, track was starting to be torn up. Track was ripped out. The cross Buxton signals were gone. And but this was the purposely went across the street to take pictures of them doing the runaround. That was my truck right there.
Hmm.
And there they are heading back around. But even this concrete loading dock is gone.
Wow.
Francis Palmer collection of the chapters. You can see the apron, shelter, water tank.
Yeah, it looks like they were just storing baggage carts under it. I'm wondering if that was its primary purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll move out to Smithville. Different photos from Jim's collection. Again, this is from the Francis Palmer collection, 1951. And somebody made the comment last time about the weight of the tracks, grass growing up between, doesn't look like much ballast. I don't know who made the comment for that. But there's 1961.
Yeah, the grass was probably keeping everything engaged.
Yeah,
What's amazing to me is that 1951 shot, they still had 3 inbound passenger trains out of Pemberton and an inbound out of Toms River, and a midday round trip to Toms River, and then the 3 out and 1 to Toms River in the evening. So it plus the local freight. So it wasn't like it was a abandoned branch line at that point.
it looks it.
Yeah.
Ewansville around 1900. Many years later. Now, I haven't seen that for quite a few years, but when I did see that maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, it was being used as a garden shed in somebody's backyard in the same place.
Yeah, I was on a road, that road behind it, and that's still there. But where the tracks are is private property.
Mm-hmm.
And this house is to the, right beyond these bushes here.
Birmingham. I understand this building's in not good shape. It's on Jeff Nixon's property, but I understand it's not in good shape. I haven't been by it lately.
All right. Curiosity got the better of me. I ran and got 2 roads to Medford,
Mm-hmm.
and the article about the electrified Burlington branch, evidently they did string wire out to Madison Avenue, because it shows in the timetable schedule during the electrified time that stops at Grant Street and at Mount Holly itself.
So John,
I
they would
guess
have
they-
they would have to make a reverse move?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Which, I mean, with electric cars, that's, I mean, 1 or 2 coaches, that wasn't a huge deal.
Right.
So whether they strung wire where they could clear up in the yard or not, I don't know.
Photo 51.
Now, the 1951, were there any baggage cars still running?
51, the Toms River trains carried a baggage RPO.
Baggage RPO, okay.
Yeah, that was until 1952 when they lost the mail contract,
Right,
and
okay.
that's when the Toms River trains came off. I
Yes,
believe that was the last actual baggage service out the Pemberton branch.
okay.
Now, if Ben, Don, John, if you want to start talking about where the branch goes off to South Pemberton, but we're going to go to Pemberton first. But just there's one last one from Brad Phillips.
Back up to there, Dave.
I'm sorry, Don.
Back up to, yeah, that one. where that kink in the track is originally, uh, if you went straight, you went to Tom's River and on up the Long Branch. The track to the left is the one that went to Pemberton. And in later years, that configuration was changed. The two tracks were parallel for several hundred, well, maybe a quarter to a half a mile. I'm not sure exactly what, but they moved the junction down to where they started to split away and eliminated a section of track there. But that's where the junction originally stood to from Birmingham and or from towards Tom's River and Pemberton. Go ahead.
I remember when I rode up there the day before Thanksgiving, 1978, that jigger was still on the track like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I remember they had a pretty bad derailment there. It actually made the courier post sometime in the early 70s. They zigged and zagged, and I know the caboose flipped on its side.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
Now, okay, so
So BR
Pemberton.
Tower would have been the east end of the double track from B Tower at Burlington Junction at Mount Holly.
turntable at Pemberton.
Nice little D16 there.
And it was a manual turntable. The crew pushed it around by hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chapter has got a collection last year, the Edwin K. Birch senior photos. So this first time we had some of these out, so we made a special note for them. So there's the Lindbergh locomotive in Pemberton,
Mhm.
which is
At
now
that-
got
At that point, they were the Toms River trains were off, but they had put a fourth inbound commuter train from Pemberton to Camden. So there were 4 sets of equipment laying up there overnight.
Right, right.
This engine is now out at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg.
various shots at Pemberton. Now, what you can't see, you can see due to the exposure, but cold day with the steam coming off. Better shot of the 460 at Pemberton in 1954.
That's a gas electric car next to that K4.
And this was identified as J.G. Montgomery building on the left on Hanover Street crossing.
GE gas electric.
Now, Don, you felt this was a chapter trip with George Springer and somebody here with a tripod.
Yeah, I can't verify that was George, but it sure does look like him.
You see the other 2 sets of equipment laid up there
Mhm.
parallel to the gas electric car.
Two sets of equipment.
Mhm.
There's this car's in a couple photos.
Yeah.
So this is one Ben just sent over the weekend of Michael's Petroleum. Which I think, Ben, you identified them as from Mount Holly.
But I liked it because it's, you know, the engines weren't only fueled to Pavonia. I guess they were running out, so they probably had a contract with that company to refuel.
Yeah, it's 8975 again. You notice they've stripped the train phone antenna off the top.
Okay,
So there's the Chevy again. May 1967. Now, Brad Phillips said this was not the last day. It was prior to the last day. Thank you, Chris. Same apparently same setup as the last day, but he said this was like a week or two before the last day of service.
It's interesting because they were down to one PRR coach by that time. So, and I believe this, if you look on the far end of this lead car, it almost looks like a circular PRSL decal.
I thought we
Yeah,
were
I-
talking about at the last presentation that this was the last day.
Yeah. I really think it was.
I
Yeah,
agree
because
with the
it's-
last day.
Yeah,
So the only person we know John's in here somewhere.
Yeah, probably on the edge of the crowd somewhere. I didn't like crowds too much. Still don't.
And we know that's Russ Sharp. I don't know if Russ is with us tonight. The yard limits sign.
Mhm.
Camp Dick's, Trenton and Camp Dick's rail service from 1917.
Yep. Via the Kincora branch.
Mm-hmm. Postcard of Camp Dick's. Around the same time, but a little better photo. Some of Bob Farrell's pictures. Then found this one up, Union Transportation Company from Jim. So I
nice,
thought I'd
nice.
put that in.
It says
now
it's a
we're gonna-
93. Excuse me, it
Yes.
says it's a 9353. Did that eventually become the Penn Central 9999, I wonder?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna switch gears. We're going into Ben Makem's specialty area here. We're going to go down to South Pemberton. So Ben, we're going to start down at Hanover Street up above here. If you go up Hanover Street would be the Pemberton station and line out to Fort Dix.
That's right.
So you come down here, this is where the South Pemberton station was. The line went out to the coast and up to Bay Head.
Now, when the Pemberton and New York was built, that was called Pemberton. And was only called South Pemberton after the Pennsy took everything over. But the timetables all just show that it's Pemberton Station. So there were two. You know,
Okay.
one on this railroad and one on the Pemberton and Hightstown.
And if you go out here now, there's a gas station on this corner. The cemetery's still here.
Yeah.
There's a Burger King and a gas station along here and a fire department. right. Some shots of South Pemberton.
So that station is probably, as I said before, the Pemberton and New York. Because that was, I don't know when the new station was put in, but this looks pretty early. That's the new station. Yeah, when we were out in the back in March, we've always been very curious about that little house that looks like there's a road crossing, but there is no road there.
Hmm.
And I don't know what the building on the far right, if you look at that, it looks like something begins with an S. And I can't imagine the shelter being on the inbound side. Because the station is on the outbound side.
Is
Okay.
Well, it's
from
a single
our,
track.
from
So,
our,
I mean, it's a single track, so it doesn't make any difference.
from
But
our
I mean, the
branches.
station was on the south side of the house. And that's what it looks like today. So when we were there, we thought that the tracks were like where that truck is, but actually the station is more closer to that Hanover Mart. Because I watched the line of the telephone poles. This I took this from Facebook. There's we'll see in another couple pictures. There's a group of they started when they were in high school. They hike all abandoned railroads in New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. And
Wow.
so this is one of their pictures. It's called Metro Trails. They're on Facebook.
Oh,
And,
yeah, I've seen their
yes.
Facebook
And
page.
that's one of the pictures that he took.
Huh.
Is this photo taken in the same direction as the previous one?
Yes, you're looking west.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
I'm in my comments about that being a road crossing, I'm thinking that's the main Hanover Street there, but
No,
this proves that I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is Hanover Street.
That's Hanover Street.
In the foreground here, but not in the background of the station picture.
And this is Hanover Street here.
So in the station picture, Hanover Street would be behind the photographer.
You're right. He's either standing in the middle of Hanover Street or he's probably standing in the middle of Hanover Street.
All right. Was South Pemberton a flag stop?
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Because what I'm looking at here is that semaphore signal, and that would either be a train order signal or a flag stop signal. And if it's a train order signal, you would think it would be on the same side as the station. So maybe that building that you just see the edge may have been something with an operator at one time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe, I don't know.
Hmm.
Well, you can see the telegraph call there, SB, if you go forward.
Yeah,
See,
well, it appears that
says
there's maybe the
SB.
pipes to operate the semaphore
then
ran under the track
that's
there and under
definitely
the
an S.
platform too.
You ready to move on, Ben?
Yes. So I think that this photograph was originally on John Brinkman's book on the Tuckerton Railroad. And
yes.
when we go to the next picture, I made a mistake last time that the more modern looking New Lisbon station is actually the same station, only they made a modification at the second window. They made a doorway out of that, and that's where the bay window is. because when you go to the next picture, the more modern one, there should be another one. Yeah. You see the steps and the baggage thing? I think that's all the same station. Because the doorway's the same, the first window's the same, and they only took out the second window to make the bay.
I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And here we come to Brown's Mills. So, Dave, while we're still on New Lisbon, when we went out there in March, we tried to find the Y that was east of New Lisbon, because there let me look, between Kankura and Lewis, there were 4 trains a day in November of 1874 that connected with the Pemberton in New York, and 1 train continued on to New Lisbon. So that came in around 11 o'clock and left around 2. And it was a 45-minute trip between New Lisbon and Kankura, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then when the Pennsy acquired the Pemberton, New York, there's a July 1881 timetable that shows service, but it only goes as far as Lewis. It doesn't go to New Lisbon, and I don't know when the Y was taken out of service.
Well, there was a track that went from Lewis to New Lisbon, but it was torn out years ago.
Yes, it was torn out years ago, and if you drive on the Pemberton and Browns Mills Road, after a light snow, we saw this when we were out in March, you can still, there's the road goes into a bit of a dip. And if you don't have a lot of cars behind it, because they'll probably start honking, if you look off to the right, you can see a mound of dirt with like a snow cap, and that's the track that went up to Lewis. But the Y portion in New Lisbon, it's I could never find it. I use imagination, but it's so the here we go. So when the Pemberton and New York Railroad came through in February of 1870, Brown's Mills was bypassed altogether. And there's a couple reasons in John Brinkman's book. He says that this man like John Horn was like a mover and shaker in Brown's Mills, and they didn't want the steam and the smoke messing up the hotel business. But also in the book, The Route of the Blue Comet, there's a mention there that the Pemberton in New York was originally going to go from Manchester to Pemberton Junction, and now Birmingham. But this man is Samuel Barrow, owned a lot of land in the Hanover tract, and he wanted, so they brought the Junction down to Whiting and moved it so he could go across his property. So in effect, they bypassed Brown's Mills by almost 2 miles. And when you think of it, it's almost like when you think of the town of Audubon, and the railroad station is 2 miles away. So they, in the long run, they probably shot themselves in the foot. So when the Pennsy acquired the Pemberton and New York, and there's in July of 1881, the timetable shows all the stops, but there's no stop for Brown's Mills on the way to Seaside when they opened up that line. And I found there's a newspaper article, and it's called Season of 1884, and it lists a Brown's Mills station, which would be out here. We're still, 2 miles away, and you got into Brownsville by using carriages to the hotels. And then in more forgotten towns of southern New Jersey, Beck says that through the efforts of James B. Riley, and I don't know who he is, but he was instrumental in getting the railroad spur built in the Brownsvilles and the Pines. So there's NC Tower. And so this was opened February the 17th of 1890. And the spur had 70-pound rail, and it was a cinder. This is the spur, no, this is the main line. That's a nice photograph.
Mhm.
So the station back there, that resembles a whole lot of New Lisbon. And so I think, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's probably the station that the Pennsauken built in 1884 called Brownsville Station. And that's, it's now at this point called Brownsville's Junction. And so we are looking east. And there's that tower operator. You can see the line is, through the window going off to the left. There's another, this is probably, and I think that's a mail crane on the right-hand side.
I think so, yeah.
So now we're in Brown's Mills in the Pines. Now, Frank Exempel told me years ago that there was no Y. It was a stub end track. And if it was, I don't know exactly when the Y was put in, but it would have been before 1905, because Pemberton Township assessed the railroad for the embankment that's probably on the right-hand side of the piece of Y. So this is from I think 1925 or before that. But so I don't know when exactly the Y was put in. But I can't imagine that if it was a stub end, that the train would have, backed all the way to Camden. But then if they kept the Y at New Lisbon, they probably would have been able to turn the train around there. Now, I read years ago, and I wish I had written it down years ago, that the Y in New Lisbon was removed around 1909. So if that's true, maybe that's when they put the Y in Brown's Mills. But now, when you look at the map, go from Mirror Lake up the line, and you see a big, thick dot. That's the water tower, and we'll see that in the picture.
Hmm.
And there's the water tower. That's somebody's garage now. Behind the engine is the Rancocas Creek. Now, engine 915 was built at Altoona in June of 1873 as a Class C anthracite. It was scrapped in June of 1896. And we said before that it's a kerosene headlamp, and you can see on the back of the tender that's a pretty big backup light. And there's, one thing I found interesting, that there's a lot of postcards of Brown's Mills, but there's no postcard of the station. And we don't think it existed. So behind that little, see, I don't know if you can see in between the two little roofs, that would be Mirror Lake. Now, this was on eBay, about probably 20 years ago, and I was in between two jobs, and it went for like 125, and I couldn't afford it. I wish I had, but at least this was so somebody has this in their collection, which I'm glad. And when I saw it, see in the pines. Now, if you go back to the previous slide, Dave. Yeah, see in the pines, that's the same
Sorry.
lettering. That's the same lettering as the color sign. And the reason why you can't see Brown's Mills is because it's underneath the overhead, the roof. It's in the shadow.
Mhm.
But there were about 10 pictures on eBay of this, and I copied all 10 pictures. It would have been really, and I was talking. Wait, if you go back there for a second, Dave, I was talking to Ted Zaris, and he said what he would do is somebody probably cut this in half to make shells out of it, and so they cut out the S and the E and the. He would paint a replacement piece in the middle and not touch the rest of the sign, just so you would know what it kind of looked like. But I hope this is they're taking care of this. This is really neat. So the photographer is standing in the middle of Lakehurst Road. You can't do this today, you'd be run over. And so, when I see this arrangement, I just sometimes wonder if this is just a shuttle in the beginning, because the later on by 1890, there were 6 trains coming into Brown's Mills in the Pines. That 6 came in and 9 went out with one Sunday only train. In 1907, a 2-day excursion ticket was $1.30, and we think that's cheap. But I went on to, what values are then and what values are today. That translates to $46. So back then it was, a lot of these resorts were for the more well-to-do, and not for really working class people. Let's see. Now, by July of 25, it was down to 3 trains coming into the Pines. 2 were stopping only at the Junction, and I think they were Long Branch accommodations. And there were 3 Sunday only trains. And now the railroad wanted to get rid of the spur. So there was a hearing in June of 1925, because it was between the Brown's Mills Improvement Association, which still exists, versus the Pennsauken. And the Pennsauken said that in 1920, the population of Brown's Mills was 300. In 1925, it was 700. The summer population goes from 1,000 to 1,500. Between 21 and 25, 165 homes were built. 6,000 lots were sold, and with no gain in patronage. Tickets sold in 1919 were 6,162. In 1922, 3,942. And the deficit between January the 1st of 1900 and March of 1924 was $2,125,000. In today's money, that would be $38,960. And, when you think about it, to maintain that spur, they had to pay, I don't know how many shifts they would have to pay the towerman and to the person at Brown's Mills Junction, because the I mean, all the trains going through NC were going to, not only the seaside, of course, Browns Mills, Beach Haven. There was a lot of traffic going through there. So the, what else we have here? Now, in 1929, the PUC said it was okay for the railroad to, when the station was moved, and I'm pretty sure that this station, they put it on the tracks. And in October 31st, or the day before, wheeled that out to the junction, that became the station. That's because there's another photograph of two guys on a bicycle, and it looks like that lines up pretty well. Yeah, this is the, well, also they were running jitney service between, because there were some trains that only stopped at the junction on their way to, say, Long Branch accommodations that didn't come into Brownsville. So they were running a jitney service from the Pines into, so I got this off of Facebook from the Pemberton Township Historic Trust. Okay. I had always wondered if I was facing east or west, and I know I'm facing west because in 1975, like a crazy person, I drove my car out on the roadbed, and I took a picture of it, and I looked at it, and so the telephone poles are on the right-hand side, and so the guys are facing east. And these are the two of the guys that are in Metro Trails. And so that's one of the pictures that they put up. And it looks like, is there enough room up there for 2 tracks? Because there was, I don't have a picture of it. There's a picture in New Lisbon, just west of the station, where it crosses over a creek. And even though there was only 1 track, it's a concrete bridge, and it's wide enough for 2 tracks. So it looks like everything that Pennsy did was made it 2 tracks. So the water station, there were track pans, probably only in the summertime. So the water tank and the trough, that was operated by the operator at NC Tower. So NC Tower, I think, lasted for a couple of years after the branch was ripped up. And I think after the tower was closed, I think they stopped using the track pans.
Mhm.
And that's it for Browns Mills.
Then up to Upton. Also, Hanover Farms. This is a shot from the White Spot archives of workers getting off the train, seasonal workers. Could have come from Philadelphia, Camden, points west, who came to work at White Spot or Reeves Farms. And the archives said that J.J. White and William Reeves split the cost of these trains of workers to come out. And while their luggage or whatnot was transported by carts, hang on, I'm getting a bunch of messages here.
Yeah, it looks like,
I would say this was before World War One.
Yeah.
At least.
Workers used to for cranberries mostly. However, for cranberry harvesting season.
Yes.
And they were dry harvested cranberries, not wet harvested. So, but it was about, I'd say, a couple mile walk. I'm not sure about Reeves Farm, but a couple mile walk to White Spot, and their luggage and whatnot apparently was taken by carts or trucks. This is from the White Spot Historic Trust Archives.
Was it about 7 coaches?
I beg your pardon?
It looks like about seven passenger cars.
Yeah, looks like all wooden coaches too.
Now, when I had somebody, one of Jim's pictures first was cropped off before you could see the shadow of the bridge on Route 70. And I did find it back in his boxes, and Ben had a photo of the route shadow at the Route 70 bridge,
Yeah, that's really neat. Really like that.
which did solve answer a question of how was all that configured. And now the road has been lowered so that the bridge is gone. And then
Yeah, we were back there in March. Yeah, yes.
when we were there in February, this is
In
from the
February.
same spot in February of this year. This is a Frank Tatnall photo from the Brad Phillips collection from Tom's River from 1959. And the remains of the trestle to Seaside Park, 1969. And I can tell you over the past week, I'll say new member Rich Taylor of Tom's River has sent me numerous photos of this area up to Bayhead, which hopefully will be good bones to putting part 2 of this program together. Well, let's wrap up this one, then we can talk. So the Burlington County businesses just out here today on the back road. It's Roosevelt Paper in Mount Laurel, paper distributor for printing. Go to Sheets Hainesport Transportation Group. Trash, demolition material. A lot of it gets shipped to Ohio. A couple of my shots getting ready to drill at Roosevelt Paper. They get boxcars in and out. And then Hainesport Transportation Group with their high hoppers. And now they have spine cars with containers on them and some contaminated liquid cars and their track mobiles. So just for this was from the Bridgeview Bed and Breakfast a couple of years ago. One of the concerts that came across the Rockville Bridge was in the front with 6 cars from the Hainesport Industrial heading to Ohio. So yes, sometimes your trash does leave New Jersey.
I thought that was Rancocas Creek.
No,
That's flood stage.
Yeah.
No, that's not the Rancocas Creek. Sorry.
Okay.
So a big thank you to a lot of you. I might not have mentioned some of you in this, but a lot of people have contributed a lot to this in a lot of different ways. As I said, this started as a lot different, shorter format in February, and it's expanded to this at this point. There's still a lot that could go in it, but I want to thank you all for helping out and your inspiration. And we always have to leave you with an Operation Lifesaver reminder. She tracks things, trains. And that's it.